Good morning, Burbs, and my name is Azelyra. Welcome to the very first episode of the Oracle Connection podcast. And, well, I'm here with CammyCakes. Hi, Cam.
Hello. Glad to be here. I remember I did a podcast earlier with you before the closed beta and whatnot, and it's been a very fun ride since.
Yeah, that one was the Eyes on PSO2 podcast, which I did, basically talking about the expectations and the influence of Phantasy Star Online 2 before it got re-released in the West again, which was basically the redemption story of PSO2 in the Western scene. That one was pretty fun.
I gave up hope, man. I really gave up hope. I was already into the textbooks.
But it's okay.
The Akashic records.
We got back here. We got back here. It's fine. So yeah, so this one's gonna be something like we're gonna do probably around like a bi-weekly podcast for Oracle Connection, but we're gonna talk about a lot of topics. And it's not exactly going to be entirely PSO2 gameplay based either, because it's going to be a lot of things about whether it be, say, how we feel about certain topics that are coming in, or like how PSO2 can relate to other things in the gaming world nowadays, or even bring in some like the Destiny comparisons and really just like a player's experience, and also comparing how Cam feels as a completely new player to me, who's a very, very veteran player of PSO2. So I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic there that we can really just like dissect through and just give you all a really, really interesting perspective and read on how it feels as a new versus an old player, which is why, the connection is there, right? Haha.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, that really does make sense. You're taking in the gaming sphere at large and seeing how those experiences shape your understanding of PSO2.
Yeah, and to me it's kind of like we're kind of reflecting each other in our own mirrors right here, because Cammy is basically the Destiny 2 me.
And you are the PSO2 me, which is so cool.
Yeah, like after we really just like linked up and just like talked about a lot of stuff, we turned out that our mindsets and ideologies and a lot of things are just so similar. It's really crazy to think of it that way. So yeah, which is basically why this podcast exists now, because I just thought it would be a really, really cool thing to really just like hit our ideas back and forth with each other and whatnot.
It's a surreal experience. It feels like I stepped into a time machine, into a parallel universe, and I get to ask my former self like all these specific questions about a game from the ground up that I think are important.
That's really funny. But yeah, so which is why today's episode, which is the debut pilot episode of our podcast of Oracle Connection, is going to be called 100 Hours, because at this point, Cammy has passed his first 100 hours of going in completely blind to PSO2 North America.
And I just figured out how to equip my mag. No, I'm playing. I'm not that much of a noob.
But yeah, like, it's an experience that, I got basically 7 years ago. So let's get straight into it, actually.
Take a trip down memory lane.
Also, actually, one more thing before we begin is me and Cam actually pulled out a survey a while ago as well, talking about like how PSO2 NA's community
reception
and player base really feels about PSO2. So we had a really, really interesting questions and perspectives, which we're also going to reflect throughout the course of this episode of the podcast. So
I would say even in future episodes, a lot of that stuff is compelling, because you get blind people like me, Japanese veterans, and then people who have a wealth of experience from other games that shape it, and then almost none at all.
Yeah. There's players from basically all sorts of nooks and crannies and everything that is just here together now in PSO2 NA. It's like, oh, very cool.
For sure.
All right. So let's get started.
All right.
The first thing that I will ask you, Cam, first 100 hours, what is your biggest, like, best standout memory?
Let me think about this one. So my initial goal was to have a small character with a really large weapon, whether it be a rifle or a launcher. And so I finally found a large launcher, and that inspired me to start using more of the launcher techniques and whatnot. And so then I started exploring the combinations of chaining the photon arts together to create some really cool looking things. Maybe not the most effective things, but they were certainly cool. And so my Twitch chat at the time was telling me like, oh yeah, people used to make combo videos and stuff. And that inspired me to start thinking in that perspective of not trying to pull the best DPS in a world where I think that's pretty easy to do with the gear we have, but rather trying to very uniquely chain some visually impressive combos.
Yeah, which is actually kind of funny because that's a lot of the things that I do on my personal gameplay videos is I don't do the most efficient things, but I do things that look fun.
It is also cool to see Twitch chat influence some of these too. And it's like, hey, maybe you should try it in this way. But because I'm a noob, I still approach it in a way that maybe they even didn't expect because I'm too unknown, too silly. Trying to think of a word to describe that.
Yeah.
I'm just not familiar enough with the systems to think the same way they would.
It's kind of like when you play something for a really long time, you kind of have like this perspective that things have to be done this way, that way, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yes, you brought it up perfectly. They do not have the capacity to unlearn what they've done thousands of times.
Yeah.
And so I'm over here trying to, you know, hit these combos to look visually appealing for maybe a video in the future. And I'm trying to golf club launcher enemies into traps and then suspend them in the air with the spring traps and then also snipe them out with the swap or something. And they're saying maybe a different way to do that.
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
pretty cool.
It's always really interesting to me to see like new players and everything exactly because of that. Like for me, my team and like how we operate is we run with a lot of like mentorship stuff.
Okay.
Back in the past as well, and even today, like we always look at people's potential and really start with the roots of like letting them the knowledge and the power to really understand exactly what's going on and letting them take the lead and take the helm on what they want to do and really show us like what they think, and then we apply it to how we think and then kind of like try to create a compromise. If it works, that's very cool, we discovered something new. If it doesn't work, that's fine because they learned how we do it and understood the entire process of it.
Makes sense. I'm going to say I get hung up on a lot of what people would consider maybe mundane things because I don't know the full applications of things that I run into yet. So for example, I'm on the floating continent and there's these areas where you can climb at the, I guess, ceiling barriers of maps and stuff on these floating rocks. And you can jump off some of them. Mm-hmm. And I was trying different photon arts and seeing which ones suspend me in the air and whatnot. And could I rocket ride off the top of that and just get a weird angle on things? And the answer is yes. So now again, going back to a visually appealing combo video, I'm thinking, now how can I use that to make this look so sick to catch something in a spring trap mid-air and then also snipe it out of the air? Go back to the Modern Warfare 2 trick shotting.
Oh my god.
Just for one funny clip. And that's why I get so excited when I find some of these mundane things. Nobody would think, oh, it suspends you in air at the ceiling barrier. How could that be applied? No, content creation, man. It's fun.
Yeah, for sure. And like you talk about all this stuff and I'm like, I don't think I know anyone who really has that kind of perspective of thinking when it comes to actually creating content, you know? Because most of the actual content for like JP audiences is either number one, like funny stuff compilation, number two, speed runs, and that's really about it.
I reference a lot of the games and content that I used to like to watch growing up and thinking of how I can apply those in a modern format. And so the combo videos and the trick shotting, to me, it's just too funny to pay an homage back in the day.
Right?
At 55 seconds, you know, the dubstep drop, Dark Phallus gets golf clubbed, like, it could happen.
That's pretty funny, yeah.
Even start using the cinematic cameras during boss fights. Is that possible?
Yeah, it is. You can use a camera tool anywhere. People do really crazy screenshots with like literally selfieing in front of a boss that's about to kill you.
See, that's exactly how these questions come up, you know, is saying where my head's at with something, and then Twitch chat just gives me a good suggestion that helps me stay on the same path. And that's really it. Stream backseating me is a blessing and a curse, and I try not to let them take the wheel. Sometimes, like with the Luther fight, for example, that was one of the most recent urgent quests added to... Are they called urgent quest in Japan, or is it emergency quest?
Emergency.
Okay, I'll call it urgent quest for sake of NA.
Yeah, that's fine.
They added Luther, Dark Phallus Luther, and I just could not figure out how to open the clock. And I was trying fruitlessly and just figuring it out, and it would seemingly randomly open up from someone else's doing. I didn't think to apply a element to it, and until I learned that directly, I never would have tried that on another boss or anything like that. Now, I'm trying to use elements on all sorts of creatures to see, can I freeze this creature or not? And sometimes their feet will stick to the floor.
Yeah.
Other bosses will not, and so That was a very helpful spoiler that they gave me, but they also didn't give away the entire boss fight and the rotations and whatnot and the best DPS. That's still for me to figure out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, PSO2 does a lot of really not obvious stuff sometimes. Like, one of the more recent bosses for the Japan server's Divide quests, right? We have this boss called the Grav Executor. He's basically a boss that's dark weak. So you would always think that, hey, you know, we have to attack him with dark and stuff like that. But then it turns out that once you break a very peculiar, or rather very particular part of his, he turns burnable. And once you burn him, he actually goes down for like a good 15 seconds. Even though he has no signs of fire weakness at all.
See, that's something that a clueless NA player would do by accident and not even understand. Because I tried a lot of things, but I didn't think Element would open the clock.
Yeah. And I think honestly this is like the beauty of MMOs and discovery, where when you find out a piece of information, you basically share it to the entire world, and then everyone fights the boss more effectively as a whole, collectively.
There's sometimes like little trivial things that don't seem to make sense for maybe my specific class, but I'm still so like happy to figure these out. Like you can stand on some floating bosses areas, and that to me was like, why wasn't I just doing this the whole time? And they're like, you're a ranger, we never thought to tell you, but like it's still fun.
Yeah. Like, stuff like that is a lot more prevalent for, like, melee classes, for example. But, like, as a range class, you would never take advantage of, like, platforms on bosses or things like that because you're always at a range. Like, it makes sense.
For sure.
It actually makes perfect sense.
It's also fun playing with an entire group of blind friends because I get joy from their experiences, too. Because I hear them, like, peek the microphone with, oh, you could do that. And,
yeah.
Oh, that's sick. And I'm like, what? And then whatever they find out, I start applying to.
Yeah.
It's fun learning as a group. And then stream chat's like, well, actually. Then they set us back on the, not the right path, but they help us progress the path we're already going towards. Yeah. And that's really the difference with stream backseating. Is I don't let them push me in a direction, but rather accelerate the direction I'm in so I can find out the why to something.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty cool mindset to have, actually, because sometimes, like, a lot of people, when they come to games like these, right, they get a bit really, really intimidated because there's so many systems, there's so many everything like that. But, like, you know, it's a game that's already, we've been playing it for the past, like, 7 to 8 years in Japan. And, like, you can ask. There's so many resources available to you.
Like I said, man, it's a time machine. I can just ask. Grandpa, what was it like in the 20s?
That's actually really funny. Although,
but yeah, I came in and I tried to stay true to what I would have done as a blind player as my first instinct. And even though I know it's wrong, I want to play it out for just the knowledge, just to understand the why these systems. And then once I start playing more meta relevant classes and strategies, I will probably do them that much better because I understand the purpose of them being like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so that, for those who don't know, is I played episode 1 and 2 back in the day on the GameCube, and the last class I ended on was the Ramaral, the female ranger, because she had a host of support abilities and pretty good attack abilities. And I thought that's what I wanted to mix, is something that could support and attack. And so Ranger Tector made the most sense. And I also tried the Fringe Tector Ranger, which has a whole host of issues, but is still fun to play nonetheless. Basically, I am just applying weak bullet and then healing and buffing everything.
Yeah. It's like a lot of people who actually played the game before would definitely be like, oh my god, why are you playing Ranger Tector? Like, they would go all like mad shit all over you, to put bluntly.
I get it a little
because
bit, but
it is a combination that literally, actually, to me as well, really doesn't make any sense, and for good reasons. Which, well, I'm not going to list like right now, but you know, there are reasons why a lot of people just go like, oh my god, no, that doesn't work. But a lot of people who are in like NA and stuff like that, who never played it before,
they also have some baseline understanding of the game, though, so they would never try it.
Like, a lot of the newer players would definitely be like, on paper, that's a really cool idea.
In practice, it lacks.
But you don't have like these, you don't have the perspective of like, oh, this can't be that, this can't be that, stuff like that. But you might entirely just discover something new. Who knows?
It's also given me a simultaneous perspective of both playing a support role and not a support role at the same time. and sort of visualizing when I commit to one of those full send, how to do the job better.
Definitely.
And I think that's important to new players maybe trying out most of the classes eventually. This is where we reference that survey. A lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
Which is okay, because it would be maybe closed in open beta time, and your time's valuable, right? Some people have an idea of what they want to do from the get-go, and they commit to that. Other people want to be absolutely sure that that final thing they commit to is the one they're really passionate about. So they try everything to get that experience.
In my personal opinion, I think that's like the most correct way to do it, because PSO2 has so many classes which have so many like different jarring play styles. You never know, is like maybe, who knows, like what, 2,000 hours in the future, you might become a force main.
Yeah, that's where we always end up. Once you put a lot of time into the game, everyone ends up force. So it'll happen.
We'll see about that.
But I also had the blind friends, so they're also playing staggeringly different classes from each other on purpose, so that maybe the four of us sharing experience between 3 separate characters each can say, hey, I played this character, this is my 2 cents on it, you're blind, I'm blind, and it's a really good insight.
Yeah, for sure. And it's perspective that really, really intrigues me personally as well, because I always want to know what new players think, you know? Like, what do they think looks the coolest, and like, what do they end up playing after trying it out? Like, how do you feel after trying it out? Because some things, when you look at it, it's just like, okay, that's very cool, but maybe it just doesn't click with me personally. But I also know some people who are like, oh, I see a giant sword, I only want to play Hunter.
For sure, and you brought that up at the perfect time, because this is where I tap into the Destiny comparison. So in Destiny, you have 3 main classes: the Hunter, the Titan, and the Warlock. The Hunter plays the most like every other first-person shooter on the market, so it's no surprise that that is the class that most people gravitate towards first. And so anytime I see a new player not playing Hunter, I always really try to figure out what drew them to Titan or Warlock. A lot of cool answers on that one. And I'm sure you're just as interested as to hearing why an NA player wants to play Summoner, for example.
Yeah. Well, now see, the thing is, like, the reason why a lot of people make a meme out of Summoner is because of the fact that it's so vastly different fundamentally to everything the game stands for.
Remember the CBT data that showed the amount of support characters? That one cracked me up.
Oh, yeah?
Was it 1% Tector?
It's like 1.3% or something like that.
I called that from the get-go. I said no one's playing support. It's up to me.
I think the closed beta result was that the most amount of players played Braver as the primary class.
And I almost expect that too, though.
Yeah, right? And then the second place is Hunter, and then the third one was Ranger, surprisingly.
I always thought it would be Braver because it's the most like stereotypical Japanese type class, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, everyone calls the NA players playing PSO on my stream. They're like, oh, weeb game. Is this Destiny 3 expansion or something like that? I just see it all the time. So it makes sense that it's, of course, going to be Braver.
Definitely. It really makes sense to me because Braver is, I feel, a class that's like really, really friendly to new players because it has a really easy point of entry where you really get to learn the mechanics of the game. Where, hey, okay, a lot of weapons have particular timing. A lot of weapons have certain mechanics of their own. The katana can guard, you have AoE, you have bossing, you have single target, you have movement, you have everything. It's kind of like a little bit of everything.
Oh, which is why I think it's a good perspective shift here. I did Braver as my 3rd character, and I approached it in a different way than if I would have chosen it as my starting character. Because I'm now at that point comparing it to my rifle and launcher.
Yeah.
The bow and katana. I am not very experienced with the melee weapons, and that's sort of my downfall now, so I'm putting more melee experience under my belt. But as far as the bow versus the rifles, it was learning a completely new system. And had I did bow before rifles, I might have even liked bow more. But it was just getting that comfort with rifles that made me not like the bow as much, because it had a little bit extra finesse to it.
Yeah.
I had to figure out maybe when doing the quick shot or the instant shot, that it wouldn't go exactly where your crosshair is, and sometimes you have to offset to make it more likely to hit on the Z-aiming. And other times, the auto-targeting, you'd have to sort of lead the target with your movement and stuff like that to get the more consistent hits. I still got to put a lot more playtime on it, but that's at least the first 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think like it's a really beautiful thing, you know, with the 3 primary big like ranged weapons being the rifle, twin machine gun, and the bullet bow. Well, there's a launcher, of course, too. But like, the moment you're gonna pick up gunner in the future, the twin machine guns are gonna feel completely different from both the bullet bow and the rifle.
I did have one pair of neutral machine guns to put on, but I never had any PAs, so it's not the same.
Yeah, it's really different.
But I'm not gonna lie, it looked very stylish.
For sure.
My brother has been loving Gunner, by the way. So that's one of the blind friends.
Yeah.
Every time I hear him just squealing like, "Oh, I hit that number," or whatever, like, because he knows he's carrying DPS being like a lower level in some of these instances.
Yeah.
Just because he figured out the NA curve to Braver a little faster than the other blind players. So it's like being the one powerful being on your server. It's kind of cool for a little bit until everyone else figures it out.
Yeah. Honestly, though, I wanna like give a small shout out here to Perp, which is Cam's brother, actually. And honestly, I have to say, Cam, your brother has a really, really good mind for PSO.
Yeah, he does. It's probably his top #1 game of all time.
Like,
so it doesn't surprise me that he's passionate enough to figure all this out on his own accord.
It's actually really surprising that for me as a veteran player, right, where I know the ins and outs of so many of these things, and then Perp just comes to me and talks to me about like, hey, this is a skill tree that I thought up would be the most effective for NA right now, right? And then basically we compare both our trees.
Contrast, yeah.
And then believe it or not, the differential is like 5 to 10 skill points on like some very small things.
For sure.
And he literally just comes to the same conclusions as how a meta player would play.
Oh, very, very quickly. His mind's made for that in Destiny as well.
I was very, very surprised.
I have to split half of my playtime in the scheme of a content creator, not a player sometimes. For example, no one's looking for trick shot angles. Like just to answer like the blatantly obvious, and the time you don't spend on that, you can apply towards playing the game well. But I guess that depends on what your answer is of playing correctly, you know? Some people just spend their time decorating their house and the lookbook and stuff like that, and not really worrying about what the most effective means is for a boss kill.
For sure.
Just whatever gets it done.
Which is why I think it's a really nice thing.
But to me, both are... Yeah, you're on the same page as me. It's like replayable either way.
Not only that, it also appeals to just about like all sorts of audiences too, because kind of like everyone has a place in PSO2. Whether you're a fashionista, whether you're a hardcore solo player, whether you're like a raid player, a group player, there's a place.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with that. I've been trying to lean into the fashion and get the right items and stuff like that. It's very, very fun figuring out where stuff comes from. I'm going to try to do holiday outfits as much as I can, so I'll plan ahead for those, and that'll be fun side content.
Yeah, that'll be really funny.
Because now everything has a purpose. When I see it, I'm like, oh, I get to use that for July the 4th. For reference, they were selling a hawk, like a bird of prey, on the shoulder in the fresh finds. And I had to decide right there, am I getting this or am I holding out for an eagle?
That's really funny. But then like at the end of the day, it's kind of like, oh, I guess can be used for that. This can be used for that. And then you just find out.
Yes, and then you look at the lookbook and you remember like, hey, I saw this item. I don't remember being applied that way. In fact, this was one of the weeks of the open beta. I wanted on my Braver, since she uses a bow primarily, to also have a ribbon in her hair, like a bow on her hair.
Yes.
So I could have 2 bows at once.
Yes.
And that item did not exist yet. And so I'm trying to rack my brain, and I figured out how to go in the salon and combine 2 different accessories to look like a bow, but isn't actually.
Dude.
2 or 3 items.
Cam, you literally figured out actual end game already.
Yeah, over here, the real strats.
Dude, those are the stuff I spend 6 to 7 hours working on every day or something. I'm like, how do
it hit me like a train. I was even before stream chat on that. They're like, well, I guess you're not getting a bow. I'm like, not on my watch. Go to the salon.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Turns out the next week there were bows. So, great.
Thanks, Nathan.
All that time.
Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I really want a bow for it just magically appears. I really want a battle rifle from the Halo series, Bill Spencer. We'll see though.
We'll see about that. But yeah, like, you know,
Cortana mag.
Speaking of like 100 hours, right? What you listed, what we talked about for the past like 20 something minutes is been a lot of things about like systems that really needed a lot of understanding. Like, I want to ask you, Cam, what literally like was your biggest struggle as a new player to understanding like all the systems and the ways to play the game and like the information and
I
everything?
wrote these down on my notepad because I know as the content creator, I'm eventually going to have to give tips. I tried to think of the things that aren't immediately apparent that would have taken me without a stream chat, without Arcipedia over here, far too long, like embarrassingly too long.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the things are the social features, trying to get the social people more involved. I did not realize what active recruitment on a party meant when trying to fill up players for like advanced quest or something, so you could farm more efficiently with 4 people and just get to know another random person on the internet.
Yeah.
And so by selecting active recruitment, it makes it so much more likely that you get party members.
Yeah, on JP, that's the open party option, where when you press the party commands, you can go over and click this like bright yellow button where it basically says, hey man, my party's open, please come join me.
Another one was filtering client orders with the ongoing mission in mind. So I think that's ongoing missions in the fields. I feel like that's a lot of jargon just to say that. It should just say like, these are for your quest.
In JP, we call it just the recommended client orders for this quest after you accept it.
So yes, recommended client orders. Those end up making a smaller difference in the long run, but at the beginning, it seems like it matters a lot, and I really would have liked to know that from the get-go. Resizing the preview window.
Oh, yes.
I'm over here like in front of my screen, Counter-Strike Global Offensive sniper style, trying to look at the pixels when I could have just resized.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Here's an interesting food for thought. Is it even possible to do that on a controller?
I don't know. I have that on my maybe bullet points for talking a little bit about my first 100 hours is M&K versus controller. I've played a lot of controller, but that was before I understood the resizing and stuff on M&K later. And I played controller just simply to talk to my viewers and say that it is very possible to play controller, but you're going to have a better time with some paddles or a chat pad. So no, I don't know. This is a comment question to answer. Can you resize on a controller?
Yeah, right? Please let us know. Like, if you guys have any, like, input on that.
If not, I'll push for it to happen.
Yeah, we'll do that.
The next thing is the chat shortcuts are incredibly useful for keybind skewing or whatever it's called.
Like chat macros, basically.
For getting my controls correct. Yes, the chat macros. There's nothing in the game that I think gives you that full tutorial on what those exact shortcuts are.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Or at least it wasn't immediately apparent. I think that's something that's worth mentioning, especially on the PC release, because it is night and day difference with my control scheme. Just so much more... it makes so much more sense to just the way your hands position on a keyboard.
So what chat macros does in PSO2, in the case that you guys don't know, right, is basically you type in certain things. For example, type u/ms15. That is my set 15, which is you equip loadout number 15. There's like chat macros like that. Or like some of the more obvious stuff for like combat is the /SR, which stands for skill ring. So you can actually change your ring by literally doing a chat macro for that. Or change your sub palette, or things like that.
And when you think about how those compound on each other, that's just so useful not to mention in a tutorial.
Right?
Even just the basic controls of using 2 sub palettes instead of 1 in the click of 1 button.
Yeah.
And so it makes me wonder for controller on how to apply the chat shortcuts to that as well.
That'll be something to discover, I suppose so. I'm pretty sure like people have their ways to do things, but I don't think I can answer that.
So this is one that I did let my stream take the wheel on, and that was mag feeding. This is one where I asked and said, I do not want to have to redo this in 50 hours.
Yeah.
Let me know what the most efficient path is for mag so I can just do that now. And they're like, just pure mag just fills the chat. So
yeah.
Pure mag it is. Ended up having to feed the mag a lot of furniture. I named it IKEA. Just launchers and furniture. That's all I fed it.
That's funny.
I'm a little sad that the quality of food isn't an Easter egg. Like if I fed it the Franca's Cafe sashimi the entire time, I thought I'd turn into a sushi roll or something. Not the case.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't know if I really trust my Twitch chat on that one because who would try it?
Man, I wish that was the case though.
It still could be. It still could be. Someone could sneakily be listening to this podcast and like, we're going to do this and they're never going to check. And in 10 years, we're going to be like, it was there the whole time.
Yeah, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, game devs, you know?
There it goes. Also, this was a day one kind of thing. Is we were looking for just a mission to take our time and briskly learn the combat, just like an easy mission, or some sort of tutorial mission, some sort of rock bear that just stands there idly and we can shoot at. Yeah, that wasn't there in the closed beta, so.
I mean, it's not there now.
I thought it was there now. I thought they just added it.
Oh no, you have the moving version in North America. You don't have the still version right now.
Okay, well, back in my day, we didn't even have the moving version. And still, it's very useful to know that there are training simulations that you can do to discover photon arts and damage combos at your own pace.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important for a new player.
For sure.
It almost should be integrated into the tutorial, kind of useful. As in, this is the rock bear. You will be spending a lot of time here figuring out what your attacks actually do.
Yeah, you know, that training rock bear merts. Sorry. Yeah.
Eventually. Oh, this is a big one because I only got maybe 2 encounters for my first 100 hours. So always carry an XP booster. You never know when you're going to see a very rare version of an enemy or get one of those rappy PSE portals or whatever. And when you see a big number like 700,000 XP drop in 1 kill,
yeah,
you really regret not having a 200% booster or something like that.
Oh yeah, Perp was freaking out to me. He was like, "Oh my god, RC, I found like this thunder monster thing." That's a Tagami, by the way. But it's a rare monster that gives an asinine amount of EXP. If you don't have boosters for it,
yeah, that's hundreds of thousands of XP down the drain.
Yeah.
So you can see now why all of us will now carry the highest booster possible, just on the off chance that we run into something like that, because it's such a funny experience with all blind players, because we were almost dumb enough to just kill it without even thinking twice about it, because we don't know what a rare variant is. We haven't even seen the normal variant but 5 times.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, if we were playing with the JP vet in the same party, I could see him fuming. No, don't hit it. And he's like on an Xbox controller, so he can't type it out in time. Which will maybe adds to some of like the social experiences I've had in the first 100 hour, is not having all keyboard players, so that typing text chat is a little more lazy than it should be.
Yeah.
It could definitely be better with a chat pad maybe on the Xbox controller, but it's not like the Xbox 360 days where that was heavily encouraged. A lot of people use voice anyway. So I'm very happy to have Discord, for example. But the ease of just typing out something directly instantly cannot be overstated for making those social relationships.
Yeah, for sure. Really does a huge impact on things though, because I don't think a lot of people really use the voice chat either, do they?
I've heard a couple, but it sounds like they didn't know the voice chat was on. So as a streamer, I'm like, I'm just going to mute that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, Mom, I said pizza rolls, not hot pot.
That's really funny. No, but here's the thing, like they can't know that it's not on because it's off by default.
Well, maybe they turned it on for one mission and forgot to turn it off, you see, or the next day or something like that.
Okay,
or maybe
that's
they
fair,
share
that's
a
fair.
console with their sibling or something. You never know.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, those are just a little smorgasbord of some of the useful tips that I would not have found out on my own without directly being told.
It's always really interesting for me to just see all these stuff because, like I said again, like it kind of is like me being talking to myself in a time machine now. It's like, man, what happened 7 years ago, right?
Yep.
No, but even then, even if it is 7 years ago, the PSO2 that I played 7 years ago compared to the PSO2 that you're playing now is drastically different.
And I'm glad you brought that up because us blind players, we waited 8 years to play this game. I'm sorry, I want the original experience. And so I'm glad I have resources like you to ask, how does this 1-to-1 compare? And you're like, oh, you are drastically over-geared or over-leveled for that. And I said, what do you think I can equip to make it feel like day one? And you're like, oh, just use red weapons with this. And so now I have a group of dedicated players willing to try that just so that we can say we tried to do it as NA players.
Yeah.
So it's more of a fun thing, just a rite of passage, I guess, for our JP friends.
Yeah. Now here's like, let me give you actually like a very big comparison. So back then, when we're in like this time, right, when before like Luther was first released and everything like that, I think that was around like the level 65 cap. So that's already a big difference. And then I remember jarringly that we were literally just using like 7, 8, 9-star weapons. And like some of us would have 10-star weapons, but most of them, if you would have a 10-star weapon, you would want to sell it anyways, because some of them, for example, the RL cylinder, which was literally the best rifle in the game back then, was selling for like 130 something million because nobody had them. Nobody had the 10 stars.
Right, and if you're lucky with that, you can use that Meseta more intelligently later. So it's worth selling always.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you know the price is going to crash.
It's absolutely crazy to like watch my old blog and like see my own videos and everything like that. It's like, man, that's so different from what you guys have in the NA experience. Like, I remember suffering so badly in Luther, and then I watched some streams and the people were like clearing it in like 10 minutes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we kind of get that in Destiny now, where some of the old content that was brutal on day one is like almost a glorified tutorial mission. It's like an extension of the tutorial now.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know. So I imagine you see some of the same now.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, they don't even have to learn the rotations because they out DPS everything. Like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So that's why I say I want the legitimate experience sometimes, and so I ask how to get that.
Like to give a quick example again as well. Like for Luther, there's a mechanic called the clear percentage rate, or the clear rating, which is the percentage that comes on top of your screen when you fight Luther or when the Luther EQ comes up, right? I'm pretty sure you have noticed that, but you probably don't exactly know what that is.
We have no idea, and I still don't to an extent. What does it increase the amount of rewards you get, or?
Yes, it does. And it also it's a clear percentage rate. Basically, it says how many, like what percent of the ship actually is clearing Luther, basically. Or well, Apos Dorios, actually.
The appetizer, as I call them.
Once you reach the second phase, is where that percentage is reflected into your drop rate as well.
Okay, so there is a purpose to the number.
And then if you actually are under 100%, you actually meet an alternate version of Luther, which is called the quote unquote false version.
Is false mean easier in this case?
I don't exactly recall, but from what I read from my old blog articles, it was harder.
It was harder. Okay, so is there any way I can convince NA people to drop it to under 100?
I don't think that's going to be possible because NA on the very first Luther EQ got 300%, which was the overcap.
Right, like some sort of community rally, like, let's see false Luther.
Yeah, I think that's a bit hard, but then it's not like it's relevant content to begin with because, you know, there's not better drops or anything like that. There's actually no incentive.
But the question is any of this really relevant content? Because it's an 8-year-old game at this
In a grand
point.
scheme, no.
Right, so maybe seeing Luther the only time you're able to in NA might be worth it. Just
no, but like what
to say
the point that I was making is like on the very first session, NA already got 300%. But on JP, we wasn't even close to 100%.
Gotcha.
So that only goes to show, like, even in NA, like, even if you guys don't know the fights, even if you don't know everything, like, everyone's just clearing all the content anyways because you're basically having 12, 13-star weapons that are really, really strong in content that's made for literally 7, 8, 9-star weapons.
Destiny has the same problem with the New Light program. So that is how they've integrated the game from what used to be a pay-to-play game into a free-to-play game. Mm-hmm. And some of the old content you have to do, you have modern power weapons and you fly through them, not to mention the bosses from previous were nerfed so many times that now they're not even a shell of their former selves.
Yeah.
And I alluded to it. Some of them are even integrated into the tutorial types of this. Where they're like, this is a fun mission, not knowing full well that it took 12 people communicating very aggressively at each other just to get a day one completion. And now you do it with no communication whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just relaxed.
Yeah. We can just like, you know, like glare at the other person and be like, you know, wink twice and be like, okay, boss is dead.
So I think I can move on to comparing to Destiny more often with that first 100.
Definitely. Because you told me earlier, just a bit before we started this podcast, is that Cammy actually started another Destiny account.
Multiple new Destiny accounts, but this one in particular, I took the entire way through all the free-to-play content. I tried everything. I made a task that no player would do, and this is acquiring the best in slots while staying purely a free-to-play. And the reason that nobody would do this is because by the time you get even close to acquiring any of these, you should already know whether or not you're going to invest in buying the full game or not. Because they're very minuscule bonuses. So I just, out of theory crafting, can it be done was the question on this free-to-play account. And the challenges that you faced on that free-to-play account were significantly harder than anything on pay-to-play. Because it obviously wasn't balanced for someone to be crazy. So yeah, some of my best memories are from playing a free-to-play account in a pay-to-play game at the time. But there's also going in blind and going the on-rails path versus the efficient path after you played it for thousands of hours.
Right.
I'd like to say that as of now, I just made an account last week and took it through the first 6 hours or so. Those first 6 hours are fairly one-to-one with what the most efficient path is and what the tutorial path is. They're very, very close to the same. Mm-hmm. But once you get out of that, you sort of have an idea, because you played most of the content, of what you enjoy doing. And I'm happy to say that just doing more of what you like will typically get you maybe third or second best in slots if you do them long enough. Which is really, really good in my opinion for a free-to-play experience.
Oh, definitely, for sure. If you can at least like get second best or third best or something like that, it's always really good.
Of course, you also have to know what you're looking for with the random nature of the loot in the game. And a lot of times, without a guide, I've had so many stories in a comment section of someone saying, I had that before and I deleted it, and not knowing they had a best in slot, just pure randomness, and they just delete it.
Did you have that in PSO2?
Let me think.
You didn't trash anything that made your viewers like, oh my god, Cam, what are you doing?
No, I sort of went off aesthetics, so I don't think that happened. Actually, this is a good tip. There's a really good tip. Before I discovered the swap shop, I would just sell some stuff because I'm like, I don't need it. Just get it out of my inventory. They're like, no, we can turn that into X cubes.
Oh yeah, that's a recycle shop in JP, by the way. But yeah,
recycle shop. Okay.
Were you actually just like trashing weapons?
So here I was missing out on the X cubes that I'm too afraid to spend anyway. Some, and some I was feeding to my mag. I was just like, why? IKEA needs to eat, dude. They're like, no, just feed him the 7 stars. But how is he going to grow up to be a healthy mag if I don't feed him 13 stars?
Oh my god. Although you can't really do that.
I understand what you mean, though.
You actually can't. Yeah. But yeah, I get you. It's still pretty funny, though, to see. But you know, like, now that you talk about, like, the free-to-play versus pay-to-play stuff, like...
Oh, yes, it actually happened. So I was playing with my brother, Perp, and he goes, hey, Cam, watch out for this furniture that this boss drops. It sells for a lot of money. Oh, really? Not realizing I fed my mag millions of Meseta.
No, back then.
Not just once either, like multiple times.
Back then, I had a moment where I was super sleepy, and I fed my twin machine guns that was worth like at least like 60 million Meseta to my mag.
I feel like it makes you like your mag more. Like I'm about it, dude. My mag's got the Oracle chair and bathtub and whatnot. We gotta hydrate.
It was so tragic.
I think every day on the anniversary of the closed beta, I'm going to feed my mag some excessively expensive item just as a birthday present.
Yes. That's really
just
cool.
Something that's wild. Maybe that was existing in that time or something. Maybe feed it the same furniture. I don't know. But
yeah, understandable. That's really funny.
I think that's a good ritual moving forward.
Hey, why not, right? It's your mag's birthday, man. Let it eat something nice for once.
So on my notes for the comparing Destiny, I don't have a lot of bullet points there. One of them says taking the efficient path, and then I also neglected to mention a part of the 100 hours. And this is from the survey. One of the survey answers said, I'm having trouble learning how to play, and the word was correctly. So we have to ask the question, is there a way to truly play any of these games correctly?
Because the thing is, like, here, fun is a subjective word.
Yes.
Like me, for example, believe it or not, I main PSO2 not for the gameplay, but actually for the fashion. I'm a screenshotter, and a lot of you might have already seen my screenshot arts, and they are great. I love them. But that's my way of correctly playing the game.
And I am a montager, so I'm looking for them trick shots. It'll happen. But no, I like the screenshots too. I'm learning to use the camera a little bit more. It's very, very useful for social media as a content creator.
Yeah,
just
for
being
sure.
able to set up the perfect scene, be like, hey, the stream's live. They're like, that's beautiful. Thank you. I definitely didn't spend 6 hours waiting for the sunlight or anything.
Yeah. Like, for example, Perp was spending the good, like, few, like, what, 10, 20 hours or something just doing his room.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, my brother just like, hey, guys, you should visit my room. And we're like, what's changed? He's like, go into that door on the left. And it's like some torture basement.
Yeah, he was pulling, like, all-nighters while studying. And also, we were in call, right? And he was like, dude, RC, like, what furnishing should I put here? Like, how do I fit this to be symmetrical? How do I, like, you know? We were just, like, doing his room for hours upon hours upon hours, like.
Meanwhile, I haven't touched my room. But I've been through so many fashion choices in terms of the outfits, like trying to think of what works for holidays, and the emotes are also funny, like acquiring the emotes and playing the market.
Yes.
Merging is the thing in PSO2 and any MMO that has trading.
For sure.
And it's really fun to see a lot of my predictions come true on the NA market because I'm like, oh, dude, and NA players are totally going to go for this.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to make that, guys.
Definitely.
I remember a certain dance number that you called a certain name.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I said, wait a second. That's going to blow up on NA now that you mention it. So a very promiscuous dance, let's just call it that. And I said this said promiscuous dance that is 19 plus 1 is going to be a very popular item, I anticipate. And because I'm streaming this too, that definitely had an influence in the market. And it just kept going up. Still is.
Yeah.
So that's my gold backing. I'm just collecting a lot of those. And even if they appear later, I'm not even going to be mad. That's just what makes my Meseta worth something.
Understandable.
How many Dance 20s back it?
Which is really cool.
So, back on topic with the playing correctly.
Yeah.
There's not really a correct way to play Destiny 2 either. Some people do play it as just a social space and think of the content to get cosmetics and whatnot as just purely means to an end. They don't care about being efficient at a raid or anything.
Yeah.
Just get it done, get the fashion, go back to screenshotting.
You can literally low-key play PSO2 like a VR chat or something. Just be like a glorified chat room.
Yes, you can. I've seen people do that. In Destiny, there's also people who forego, let's say, 80% of the offerings in the game to trim it down to a extremely hyper-competitive version of itself and play tournaments. And more power to them. They're fun to watch, but it is almost a game that doesn't feel like Destiny. And so there's that too. It's not a wrong way to play it, but it's correct to them. More power to them.
Yeah.
What else? I know someone who uses only one kind of weapon in PvP. No matter when it gets buffed or nerfed, he's still on that.
Wow. That's pretty impressive, actually. That's some dedication right there.
Oh, we have one that's about to return to full, like, original glory. So there was this guy who played the same loadout, thick or thin, every iteration of the game. His name was, the screen name was Blunt O'Clock. And every time I ran into him, he had a weapon called The Last Word, which is an automatic hand cannon, and Fell Winter's Lie, which is the highest impact shotgun in the game. And so when Fell Winter's Lie got phased out, he upgraded that shotgun to something new when he had to in Destiny 2 and The Last Word came out. So he used Last Word, and the Mindbender's Ambition was the name of the shotgun, and he just stuck to that. Well, as it turns out, there was a leak for a new shotgun added. Turns out the Fell Winter's Lie is coming back, and I'm so excited just to see this guy play with it. It's gonna be so fun running into him and seeing the old loadout again.
Yeah, it's like, hey man, going back to my roots.
For real. It's a loadout though that has almost no range whatsoever, so you can't even be mad at it. You're just respecting it if you die to it.
Yeah, that's...
Because you have to really finesse with your movement to get up close enough to make it really effective.
That's funny.
And so he's just gotten stronger as the years went by. And the range got lower and lower on those weapons. He got faster and faster.
Yeah. Which is like why I want to also like bring this back to like the PSO2 gameplay as well. It's like, is there a wrong way to certainly play like a class or a weapon? There probably is. But like, how do you say it? There's certain like borders.
I can't see there being a wrong way that doesn't lead to some form of completion if tried hard enough.
There's some sort of like borders that will always kind of like try to push you back in the right way, you know?
That makes sense. Yeah, like let's think bumpers and bowling that are there eventually. You stray too far, they're like, go back.
Because like it's not like the skill trees is like a skill ocean or anything. It's very, very linear.
In Destiny, they are extremely linear. You don't really have a choice on the tree anymore. And I think that goes back all the way to Destiny 1 because the majority of player base would just choose the same things on the tree anyway. So they might as well have not had the choice whatsoever. Do you find that's the same in the Japan version of PSO2?
I would say yes and no in certain cases. There are some cases where like you kind of want to play really, really streamlined, But then there are always, ways for you to really like just min-max, put out some points here, put some points there, because personal preferences. For example, if I play a hunter sub, a lot of people would play it for like the survivability, right? With like the automate, the massive hunter or hunter physique, like all those stuff. Some people literally play the hunter sub and just straight up stack all the S attack ups 1, 2, and 3 with no regard for defense at all.
I see. In Destiny, the strict no choice system gives you 3 ways to play a subclass. And so I'll give you an example of what is called the Sentinel Titan or the Defender Titan. 3 trees: Protector, Commander, and Aggressor.
Mm-hmm.
They try to do the same thing by being this Captain America shield thrower, but they're just subtly different. But I find all 3 extremely useful. And the thing is, I think if we had skill trees like we did back in Destiny 1, it wouldn't seem like 3 choices anymore. It would just seem like one definitive choice, if that makes sense. So it almost gives the game developers more room to really hone the identity of a subclass or tree or something like that without giving you that illusion of choice when looking at the effective means for PvP. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah, I was just curious if Japan is strictly one selection on some classes or not.
But, the answer, like I said, it's basically a yes and no. It's both, in a way. It really depends on what the setup is and basically, like, how you would play certain things. For example, like, the successor classes in Hero, Phantom, Ep1, the skill trees are very, very linear. Everyone would almost basically pick the same thing anyways to begin with, so it's like,
Makes sense.
But then there, of course, are like some very small differences where you can always make the difference. For example, if you're playing hero but you play sword only, then you don't have to put the points in, the stuff for the other weapons and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, with my braver, I'm going mostly like ranger sub and just sticking to the traps and only using the bow, kind of foregoing the katana for now.
So that's like already another different way to play, because you can basically build a very focused bullet bow tree without any regard for katana. So that's like, yeah, but then the problem will come also in that tree will not be usable for a katana main because it's spec towards.
And the Destiny 2 approach would just be, it's not called Braver anymore. It's a subclass of Braver now. They'd call that the bow user or something. I don't know.
Like subclass isn't like an even more like branch out from Braver itself. So basically, I guess you can say it's kind of like,
yes, that's what it would be.
Which is why we just coined these terms to be like, say, oh, you're playing a bow Braver.
Yes.
Instead of saying Braver in general.
And the funny thing is, those same Sentinel Titans sort of took that same approach in the way that they're subtly balanced. One drops a bubble, a protective bubble that gives you buffs. Another has a very aggressive Captain America shield that throws 2 shields instead of 1. And the middle one does a little bit of both. It is a giant protective shield, so something that does a little bit of the in-between jobs of the super. So I can see that with going with hyper-specific on the Braver, for example, as being kind of the same thing.
Yeah, no, like these terms are for real. Like you can say, oh, I play hybrid bouncer, or like I play sword hero, or I play rod phantom, or stuff like that.
A PSO also gets a lot more freedom with letting the full selection of skill trees go wild because it's mostly PvE, correct? Not much focus on the PvP.
Yeah, even on the PvP side, it's like the devs already preset everything for you, so there's no customization there.
So it's a curated experience, which means it's much more balanced in the midst of all the possibilities. That's good. That's real good. Does it change seasonally too?
Yes, it does change seasonally.
Awesome.
I wanted to like touch point on that just a little bit, just to like relate to the Destiny stuff a little bit, but like my opinion of what a PvP game should be is really just like, especially in MMO games like these, I feel like even though PSO2 PvP is memed a lot and a lot of people don't play it because nobody really plays Phantasy Star for PvP, like let's be real about that. But like I honestly think they took the most correct approach possible.
I think so too.
Which was give everyone, the most balanced option where nobody will have a certain advantage like in PvE because they have better gear or something like that.
And so they treat it as purely a game mode where you will always fight a challenging opponent. Exactly. That's the lure of PvP to me, is just knowing that the challenge always ramps up the better I get.
Yeah.
I mean, Luther's only gonna get so good. He still calls me a piece of Ark's trash, but
Piece of Ark's trash.
he'll still call me a piece of Ark's trash when we end him in 9 minutes. But
Yeah.
yeah, that I see. Like on that survey, a lot of people did mention PvP as an interest on NA too. So I wonder how much influence that's gonna have because, like for example, we talked about no correct way to play PSO2. There's someone who always decorates their house, someone who looks for screenshots, someone the socializer. And now with NA, there might be the diehard PvP guys, and that will be very, very fun to watch progress.
Oh yeah, that would be so interesting to see because I know like the NA mentality in general, a lot of people would play PvP a lot. For sure. Like at least compared to JP. I have zero doubts about that.
Now this one will come out of left field. I didn't prepare you for this one, but I think this is a cool way to compare it to Smash Bros. Melee. I'm sure some of you have seen the Smash Bros. Documentary out there, and if you did watch it, you could see how two distinct skill sets develop on opposite sides of the world, and through trial and error, they eventually end up with a similar metagame, just at different points in the timeline. I think if NA has that PvP drive to just play the hell out of it, it will be so funny to see down the line if Japan's like, wait, this actually looks very cool. Think we should give this a shot again.
Oh no. I think that's completely perfectly fair. Like I think that really is a thing because I have a lot of friends personally who play Destiny 2 and completely abhors the PvP side of it because, you know, all the issues and everything like that. But then
I believe that.
Every time that somebody mentions, hey man, Cam posted a new PvP video, everyone always says, oh my god, that looks so fun. And then they go back to play PvP and then complain about it all over again.
My daily cycle.
I think honestly Western influence is a lot bigger than a lot of you might think, honestly.
But so is Japanese influence. You would not believe the influence that Japanese players have had on my Destiny gameplay alone, because I was curious about that same concept. I said, now what is somebody who is not watching my content on the other side of the world doing to answer this problem?
Yeah.
And sometimes you learn something new. And for this one, it was the Japanese player using their shoulder charge ability mostly for movement with no intention of getting a kill. And so I thought there's this window while you're sliding that you can still activate a shoulder charge. It's just exactly what it sounds like, a melee ability that jets you forward using your shoulder as an attack.
Yeah.
It's very, very slight window where you can snipe or fire a shot in the slide before the shoulder charge. And so if one could theoretically aim well, they could slide out of cover, shoot somebody, and then shoulder charge back in cover with a real big sweeping motion of the controller or mouse. It sounds tough, but the more you practice it, the more you realize you're not just getting lucky anymore. So
it's a skill.
You would never think to try that if you didn't see someone at first using it just for movement.
Either that or just get wrecked by it.
Yeah, that too. But I feel like even when you get wrecked by it, it's too slow on the kill feed for you to even register what happened. You may even just like throw the controller down and be like, oh, that was just lag. Truly, you don't know what's going on sometimes when people hit those very quick actions.
Yeah. Understandably so.
Another one was that Japanese players also used a lot of the invisibility techniques. And so we started considering how Invis actually works and started exploring that and figuring out how it manipulates the radar and stuff.
Right.
If I think of any more examples, I'll bring them up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Maybe for another episode too.
But yeah, you know, you're talking about like a lot of these like small stuff, kind of like, you know, smoothly linking into the next topic I kind of want to talk about, which is how in both games or in every game even, how rewards and incentive is balanced. Basically what this means is, you know, for example, if we say in PSO2 context where, hey, there's a really, really difficult mode. For example, say, yo, there's like this endless mode, right? Which endless is like regarded as like one of the hardest content in PSO2 because you really need to get really, really high scores in that mode to actually get like a certain title so you can flex on everyone. But you know, that's the only reward. There's no real reward, which is why there's not too many people generally really playing or really even liking playing endless, because why would they play endless when they can do other stuff and get more rewards anyways? You don't get money for endless. You don't get exactly better gear from Endless. You don't get anything except that pride of like saying, hey, I did 72 million points.
I do like the street cred of some of those cosmetic only items because it's really, really fun when you have a random group of people and somebody tries to bring up a certain method of doing something and almost presumes you're a noob for asking certain questions, and then you just flick on the cosmetic and they're like, okay, I'll be quiet.
Right? That's really funny, yeah. But like for PSO2 in particular, there isn't that much of like an incentive for a lot of like the harder content, but it does exist. It does exist.
I like the cosmetic aspiring content. I really do. I don't think they need rewards, but at the same time, if a developer is looking at a sheet of player engagement and they see this one activity is extremely low, I could see why they would want to incentivize it. Mm-hmm. But then what would be too much? Because if a high skill player is doing it on their own volition, if there's a reward to it, would they not just farm it very, very efficiently and crash that item or something?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what people are hunting for is basically just like the fact that they can say they did it. And that's really it. But is that really enough of a reward for the general population of players to be like, hey man, I want to go do Endless?
I don't know the answer to that, but I think Destiny 2 just put out a piece of content that gives us a clue. So Destiny released the hardest version of the Nightfall Strikes. And Nightfall Strikes are the closest thing I can compare to in PSO is an expedition. You kill a bunch of mobs, you do a couple mini objectives, and then you kill a boss at the end. Destiny's version of that is called the Nightfall, or the Strike. The Nightfall Strike has a lot of varying degrees of difficulty, and they do it by power levels. So let's say the easy one's at 1,000 power, the hard one's at 1,020, slightly harder at 1030. Well, today they released the 1060. And with these higher degrees of difficulty, there's also extra mechanics, extra enemies. Not only is the power level higher, but they might have deadlier, more frequent attacks and that sort of thing. Just ramps the difficulty up overall. And so the Master to Grandmaster increase in difficulty did not have a significant increase in rewards. It was almost exactly the same rewards. The only addition is a cosmetic title you can wear under your character for doing multiple of those Grandmaster Nightfall variants. And so the player base at large just has no real drive to interact with the content whatsoever. Whereas for me, it gives a real reason to use the whole sandbox and wonder, now that there's a hard piece of content, is this very fringe thing that I obtained a year ago finally useful? Can I apply all my sandbox knowledge in a way that makes the impossible possible? And that's the fun to me in MMOs. But I regret to announce that today's Grandmaster Nightfall variant, this particular strike, was not difficult enough for that. But there is potential that it will be there.
And I do think that it really does relate back to PSO2 in a big way as well, because a lot of the content is really centered around the general player base, where it's not too difficult for people, and then people are not really incentivized to even get better because there's no point to get better because there's no rewards for it.
Sometimes people will find out that after chasing the reward, the knowledge they acquired to knock out that content makes them just like learning about the game, not even getting the rewards.
Yeah.
That's maybe how it was for me.
That is definitely how it was for me. Like, knowledge is power, and the more I learn about something is a reward in and of its own. And that's how I see it.
Like I said, it just makes the game at large, 100% of knowing the game, worth it. Because you know that eventually it will have real applications.
Mm-hmm. Which now actually leads into a really good point in North America PSO2 that we were kind of like alluding to a little bit earlier, where generally like the content that you're doing right now, right, is made for basically level 65 and what, 7, 8, 9 star weapons, and then you guys in NA are basically playing in like a very much more powerful balance patch and also having 12 and 13 star weapons. How do you personally feel about that, Cam?
Well, since I know that that is the case, like had I not known, I wouldn't have changed anything. But since I know that's the case, sometimes if I get an activity where we don't have quite enough people, I say, no, we're just going to keep going because we need the experience. Or sometimes I'll throw on red weapons just to purposely tank my damage so that I'm able to use more photon arts to kill an enemy and wonder what the better way to do this is. So I learn. I know other people aren't taking that self-imposed challenge, but maybe when NA catches up to JP, it might be a little too jarring of a change and people don't have that experience yet. So I'm just sort of preparing for the future.
Yeah, which is exactly like my point here, where it's incentive versus reward, which the incentive here is the incentive to actually learn all the like boss mechanics and everything, but there's no rewards for doing that, or like no real tangible rewards rather. Like, why do people like think that they need to challenge themselves to these bosses when these bosses can literally just melt in like what, 5 minutes, for example, right?
Yeah, for me, it is. I waited 8 years to play this game, and I know that a developer worked hard to make this a very intense boss fight and stuff like that. And I want to play that content as it was meant to be played, so that I could say, was it worth waiting 8 years for? And the answer so far has been absolutely, even with the power creep weapons.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I understand that people in the NA side might just be saying, hey, we're going to quickly prepare you guys to really, like, ramp up your gear and everything so you can be prepared for, like, you know, getting caught up to JP and everything. But, like, is it really worth it?
Is the pacing correct, too? Because that's a lot of turnaround on systems. Can you really learn a boss fight if you're only playing it for a week and overleveled? Or is that not important? Because think of like the acquisition of skill. Like, for example, on Luther, I wasn't aware that the elements can open the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I know that, it makes my approach to future bosses totally different. But if I'm flying through these 1 week at a time and with the modern work schedule and whatnot, even pretend COVID didn't exist or something, like people don't have all this free time, you might ignore some mechanics that are crucial to your skill growth as a player down the line. And that accelerated pace might make you miss it.
And then the thing is, like, with the lack of challenge and difficulty, there's also no incentive for people to even, you know, want to go back to learn, because it's a quote unquote waste of time.
I've decided at this point that I will make a single JP character just to play with the JP people and be the exchange student. Mm-hmm. So I think it still has its applications. For being a holistic PSO player and planning for future content.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't want that wake up call where it's like, finally, here's the hard content. It's like, oh, I can't do this now.
Because like a lot of the JP people are just like, this is what I see on literally every live stream and every video that I talk about PSO2 NA is this one quote: "Wait until Phalig shows up. We'll see NA cry."
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
You don't know what that is, and I don't think you want to know what that is.
Does he also call me a piece of Ark's trash?
Or
am I lower than that?
It's a she, actually. She doesn't even open your eyes when she fights you, so...
Okay.
That's how irrelevant you are.
Gotcha. Is that a hint for mechanics? Let me write this down.
No, but for real, though, like, Phalig is a huge eye-opener for a lot of players. Like, initially, when Phalig came out, I don't know how many times I got wrecked by her.
Is the boss a giant floating eye?
No.
Okay, because that's actually a Destiny boss. I thought you were making a pun there for a second, where I would laugh like 4 episodes later.
Oh, no. If only I knew Destiny context, Cam. If only I did. But we can pretend I did, so you can just still laugh at it like 4 episodes later.
I mean, like, looking at some... Okay, this is a huge one. As we know, MMO in the MMO sphere, Phantasy Star Online, just in general, has set the fundamental stage for all the other MMOs to succeed. Set the framework, right? It is so cool to be playing a modern one like Destiny 2 and then go back and see how these systems were applied. And sometimes recreating the wheel maybe isn't necessary. And I'm sure a lot of other you guys who play other MMOs have experienced the same thing when hopping into PSO for the first time. You're saying, this is a lot like this. Wait, this came out how many years before this? I like the way they do this here. Sometimes that's not the case, but a lot of the times it has been the case where just the simplicity is the better way to do it.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't fault anyone for taking a creative approach to try to find something better. I just really appreciate PSO doing it first.
Definitely.
and it's fun to live it, like as the timeline stated.
Yeah. And now you're a part of history.
I went in blind. Yeah.
But yeah, like for real though, I really am a little concerned, but also am a bit excited to see what's going to happen to PSO2 NA once you guys reach the quote unquote wake up call content. Like, I don't know how that's going to shift like community mentality and stuff like that. But you have to also remember that a lot of these like challenges and stuff like Phalig, for example, or like Masquerade and stuff are not forced content. They are extra challenges for players who want a challenge.
I like that. And I wish just in the gaming sphere in all games ever played that more players took that approach. That you don't have to complete all of the content immediately. That some of it is going to be a little bit of a skill grind or maybe even a time grind, which I don't like the time one as much, but the skill one for sure.
But then it takes time to get skill though.
Yes, I was going to say, remember the Dark Souls series and how everyone compares everything to being the Dark Souls or something. They do that for a reason because that game had a big cultural impact. That was the wake-up call for a lot of gamers at that time. It is fun to overcome difficulty in video games.
Yeah. Some people may take it differently though.
Yes, and I was going to get into that. This was a turning point for me because I played the Guilty Gear closed beta last week. And in the loading screen, this is what their loading screen says when you're loading into a match. It says the greatest what is it? I'm gonna look it up while you talk.
Right. So I'm just gonna go on the topic of like just actually improving then, because like, for example, like some people, you know, it also links back to saying, hey, what do you exactly play the game for, right? With the content being optional, so like the people who really want to go hardcore can go hardcore if they want to, and then the people who don't want to don't have to, and that's just really good game design. But then it also puts up a question, like, for example, you know, how Dark Souls as a series as a whole is literally centered around the game being difficult and making everyone want to improve. Unlike PSO2, where the game is, you can do anything you want to and not be wrong at it because there's so many things, whether it be social, whether it be fashion, whether it be actually improving yourself or anything like that. But it's always nice to have that content to be there. So honestly, like, even my judgment here is not exactly correct either, because it's like I'm trying to imposing how I feel about how other people might be approaching the game and stuff like that, to an extent at least. But well, I guess in a way that's also just me sharing how I feel about approaching the game experience that I did way back in the day.
For sure. So I found the specific quote, and this one's about overcoming challenges, right? The quote is, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail."
Oh, I love that.
Or fall.
I love that.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally a loading screen that says, you could get bodied here, but you're going to learn today. And I like that approach.
Yeah. I think it's the most correct approach.
And that was fun as hell too, because I'm a noob in that game as well. And sometimes I had the queue way above the match where the matchmaking said I was supposed to be, just to find opponents with the like connection issues of the beta. And it was so fun to match an experienced player and realize like at a certain point that, dude, this is a noob. I'm sort of just wasting my time here. And I'm like, no, play me. I need a good opponent.
I guess it kind of goes both ways though. Like,
yeah, because they're looking for a fun match, and I'm like, no, I need to learn. Like, you're not gonna learn from this ass beating.
Hey, maybe they can approach it as like, you know, what kind of weird combos I can do. You know, take it as like a target dummy.
I made like a lot of progress on just one guy who started off perfecting me, and then I started taking off 80% of the bar. I never actually beat him, but just progressing like that. Maybe he was getting more adventurous with his combos, and that's why it was working for me.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that I was being the quote is something along the lines of, "The master swordsman never fears the second best swordsman, but the unexperienced noob will do something random."
Yeah.
For once, I was that noob. It's like so jarring in Destiny not being able to unlearn some things to make the lobby more fun.
Yeah. Honestly, to me, things like these are what I call a very humbling experience. Like,
there you go.
For example, me, if I were to jump on Destiny now, I would be a complete noob, even though I'm called literally the RCpedia of PSO2. I'm like, yeah, I know nothing about Destiny.
I think that's going to be a fun piece of YouTube content for later. Trust me, I have some free-to-play accounts ready to go to get you into the fun content right from the rip, but I still think you should play the tutorial.
Yeah, I don't think I'll survive without it. But you know, that honestly like applies to you as well, Cam. Like, for being such like a renowned player on Destiny and everything like that, and now you're into PSO2 being a complete noob. Like, how was that experience?
Like I said, it's like stepping into a time machine. It's mostly because I can ask Arsopedia all the cool questions that I would have killed to know the answer to in the Destiny equivalent, just immediately. But yes, overall, definitely a humbling experience. Like, I will die to the most basic creature and just say, all right, we're going to full send. We're going to learn every attack this thing has so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Take like 8 deaths in a row and someone's like, what's going on here? And how do I know where these iframes are?
Gotta experiment, man. You know, people before you already been there, done that. Like, yeah. Now it's your turn to really start the self-discovery process.
I like this stage of where I am in a game. I like when a game is just significantly better than my understanding of it.
And it feels rewarding.
It makes everything fun, yeah. Whereas everything in Destiny right now, it needs to be the most brutal thing you've ever seen, or just let me play PvP.
Yeah. Just wait until like 10k more hours later and you'll probably be there in PSO2.
But then I will probably transition to the house decorating or the fashion game more than... That'll be the new game. Yeah. The lookbook battles.
Hey, man. Okay, well, welcome to my territory. You're stepping into my house there.
Oh, a worthy opponent will come out one of these days. Yeah. Give me another 10,000 hours.
Right?
It'll be like, we'll have the Pokemon battle animation start, and it'll be the lookbook numbers rising. You can't do like for like, RC.
Yeah, that's not fair. It's like you have you have a viewer base than me. Like, you can ask all your viewers to like your stuff. That's not fair.
We gotta create the competition in a way that the person with the lower amount of votes actually wins, by creating an outfit for the other person's character but not telling the viewers.
Oh, that's gonna be so interesting. Because I have so many characters as well. That's gonna you're gonna have a fun time. You're gonna have an absolute blast.
I was thinking also involving my community in screenshot contests and that sort of thing. As another way of community outreach.
Do like what? A Twitch plays PSO2 and let them choose our fashion?
That would be fun.
Oh, man.
But I think screenshot contests with specific categories will be very cool. Even just for like certain ships or blocks on ships for that day.
Definitely.
As well as maybe offering like in-game items I'd trade them. I'm like, if you're wondering where all the Dance 20s went, you can win one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, gotta have the incentive for the people to be like, yeah, man, you know, let's do it. But then at the end of the day, it's really just all about involvement. Like, whether it's for the rewards or for anything like that, I think the end of the day, the most important thing you should take away from this as the listener and everyone as a player too, is that the most important thing when it comes to anything like gaming, community, social, everything is all about involvement. You need to start taking the first step and be, hey, this is my first step, because it's always the hardest part is taking the very first step. Once you do, I'm sure a lot of people will definitely like grab your arm and just like help you propel yourself forwards, everything yada yada. You know how to.
Yeah, I agree that self-initiative to just putting yourself out there in the social setting on MMOs especially is so important.
Very.
That's the reason some people play just by itself. They don't even care about the game. They care about the social systems that push you into those environments.
Which is why I'm going to lead this topic into our next segment, which is about you guys as well and your involvement with us. So every episode that we're going to do of Oracle Connection is going to have a section of viewer questions, in which this time I just kind of like ask my community, because this is before our first like pilot episode, because this is the pilot episode, right? But from now on, like for the future, you guys can feel free to ask questions that you want to see like us address in the future episodes and stuff like that in the comment section below of the video. Or, well, you can also tweet us on like Twitter and stuff like that. Links will be in the description below. But yeah, I think that's going to be a very fun thing as well for us, because we get to really see like where you guys are wanting to know like our opinions on things or stuff like that. And pretty sure we can probably give a really nice feedback back to your questions as well.
For sure. I'm looking forward to what these questions are.
So particularly for next episode though, just so maybe you want to like target your questions a little bit. You don't have to feel like targeted, but next episode for next week, well, not next week, but like the week after, we're going to be talking a little bit more about leadership in terms of like leading a team, socializing, aspects of team plays versus solo plays and stuff like that. So if you have any questions regarding that, please feel free to ask. So anyways, let's head into the viewer questions for this episode. Cam, let's start off. We have questions from... We have 8 great questions this episode, actually. Let's see. The first question here comes from Ochiru. Hope I pronounced that okay. Asking, at Cammy, what is your favorite free field so far? Free field being the expeditions, or which map is your favorite in PSO2 so far?
I spent the most time in the closed beta in the Tundra, but after doing them all, I'm still going to say it's the Tundra. The ice is so cool. Yeah, so Tundra. That's my answer. What about you?
No, I was kind of like phased because you said the ice is so cool. I'm like, Cam, did you just pull a quick one on me?
That was definitely unintentional, but I'm just going to claim it. Like, you guys can unsub on his behalf.
Yeah, I was just sitting here phased for a second there like, Cam, are you really going to do this to me? But yeah, honestly, my favorite field actually has to be either Tokyo or Las Vegas because I'm a really big fan of like urban photography. But like that's my bias reasons.
I feel bad for my virtual character. I'm over here just like, I need to bundle her up. Like, this is too much in the Tundra. So I need to have my own Tundra outfit ready to go. Just switch it in the fashion tab.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. All right, let's see. What's the next question? You can try pronouncing this one, Cam.
Okay. It sounds like I'm a parcel tongue from Harry Potter, but I'll give it a shot. Yes, it's YSZE.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, Cammy, your fave weapon so far, aesthetically speaking, in parentheses. That would be the SSPN launcher. I don't know what that stands for.
I don't know either.
Or why sportscasting has to do with this rocket launcher, but that is the one. It is one of the biggest weapons I've ever seen in the game, and that alone is enough for me.
If you wanted my opinion as well, my favorite is the Aura Estuar, which is the rod from the Aura series, which is a 13-star series. It originally came from the Final Fantasy 14 collaboration with the Odin boss coming into PSO2 initially, although it is common in NA for some reason. I don't know why, but it's a very, very limited weapon in JP. So like using it, it's black and blue. So it kind of feels like it really represents my own colors, and it's aesthetically just really beautiful, which is why I love it so much. And it also feels really exclusive because not many people have it.
I'm gonna revitalize that old meme. Is the dress black or blue? Just have a picture of the one. What color is this one? Or rod, I mean.
Yeah, there's a purple version of it though.
I'll keep my eye out. Keep the eyes peeled.
Instead of black and blue, it's a purple and blue one. Yeah, but it's a weapon series, so there's actually the aesthetic for like every single weapon. But it's probably my favorite weapon series in terms of aesthetics.
I like that. Destiny has their own weapon series too. Well, they'll have like a gun from the Menagerie, which is supposed to have all these jewels on it and that sort of thing. Then they'll do one from the Vex, and these weapons have like grass on it because they've been sitting dormant for many thousands of years.
Yeah. So next question from Uber. At the both of us, how do you pronounce QUNA? Question mark.
That would be a question and answer. No, it's the Kuna. South Park has ruined me.
No, but like for me, I pronounce it like the Japanese pronunciation, which is Kuna. You just call her Kuna.
What a wonderful phrase.
Now, see, the thing is, like, a lot of people would say it's Kuna, and I don't blame them because it's spelled QUNA. I don't think anyone would really pronounce it as Kuna because that's, not what it reads, right?
Right.
So, like, I don't think it's wrong. I don't think either one is wrong. As long as you come to, like, an understanding. But if anything that rolls off the tongue better would probably be Kuna.
On stream, I'm just saying Kuna.
Ken, don't get started with the memes.
Okay. All right, next question comes from Act Tough Saint and both of us. If I was to spend money on the game, where would I recommend you spend it?
Ooh. I feel like this question, our approaches for the both of this is probably going to be really different.
You go first.
Sure. My personal recommendation is get more characters. Because to me, more characters means more fun in character designing. And also in a gameplay standpoint, an economy standpoint, right? You can do all your weekly rotations and stuff on multiple characters, which means more character equals more money. And also, it sets a really, really good thing because, like, for example, if you want to play Fighter Hunter and you also want to play Hunter Fighter, as a free-to-play, you only have one skill tree. So, for example, on one character, you have a Fighter Hunter, right? The Fighter tree is meant to be for the main class. So if you swap that tree to a subclass, it's not going to be as effective, and vice versa. So it's more beneficial to have another character rather than spend money on additional skill trees, because you also get the benefits of like being able to do your rotations on your money making, your weeklies, your yada yada more, you know? And that is my opinion on what the best way to spend money in PSO2 is, like the big like bang for your buck, you know?
Okay, I know we said there wasn't a correct way to play PSO, but that makes so much sense. I was just going to say the Fresh Find shop, because let's be real. There was one day where none of us in the Alliance even talked to each other, and all of us bought the same item without even saying. They had an ornamental handgun. We didn't even hesitate.
Oh.
I'm not going to lie, though. Recently, I was swayed by that hawk. Ornamental hawk that you could have on your shoulder. I thought that would be really, really funny.
Yeah.
My next goal is fourth character. This one's going to be my content character that I probably just change the look of frequently to be cosplayed and whatnot. I was thinking summoner that makes it look like the Pokemon protagonist and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so some of the Fresh Finds items are strictly necessary for making this happen.
And yeah, for people with the JP context, is Fresh Find Shop is like something that doesn't exist in JP, where they basically give out a lot of like costumes and accessories that are untradeable, by the way, but you have to purchase with Star Gems, which Star Gems are a really limited resource right now, but you can also refill Star Gems with real money.
Which I think is their goal there, if I had to guess.
This probably is the goal, yeah.
And a lot of the items aren't actually that good. It's just on occasion you see something that just makes sense for the whole package.
Yeah.
I will say the mission pass and the player shop alone is more than enough.
Yeah, the mission pass is also an exclusive thing. But if I were to say, it's probably one of the better things to spend your money on as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, the mission pass gives you a lot, and being able to take the victory lap on it is very helpful.
Also, cosmetics and stuff on that is also untradeable. So having a mission pass is better than not. But if you're not going to pay real money for it, you can also buy the mission pass with 200 Star Gems. I think it was 200. I'm not entirely sure. But from what Perp told me also, you get like 125 something Star Gems back for like completing the mission pass as well. So all in all, it's pretty worth it.
Yeah, that does sound worth it, but now I'm curious to see how NA is going to handle that kind of economy moving forward. Are they going to make more Star Gem rewarding activities, for example? Maybe something weekly repeatable? We'll see.
We'll see. Anyways, rapidly moving forward. Next question from Sand here. At both of us, he says, or she says, playing the market is one of the things I like the most in MMOs. What about you guys?
Yeah, I may have dabbled in an old game called RuneScape. I was the guy selling the Rune Scimitar for 25k in Varrock Square.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. Here's one thing that's very interesting to me is I don't like playing the market, but I have to play the market if I want a good economy to establish all the fashion that I want to.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So it's something I have to do, but doesn't mean I necessarily enjoy it personally. I know some people probably will do.
I enjoy it a lot, though.
Yeah, like this guy.
It's fun. It is so much fun. It is trying to put yourself in the mind of an entire community and say, what do I anticipate being valuable?
Right? And it is rewarding, too. Like, if you can really get into that.
Oh, yeah, it's directly rewarding, but I find it more fun even just theory crafting and not actually going through with spending 30 mil. I'd rather just have novelty collections.
Definitely, for sure.
Some people in RuneScape, for example, they collect only one item, and so you'll see somebody with like 77,000 soul runes or something like that. Where'd you get all those? Oh, I just bought them for the last 5 years.
Yeah. Now, speaking of like hoarding, it kind of like really relates closely to something's like next question, which is asking at me actually, what are some things slash material slash items that we can be hoarding or doing right now in North America to prepare or to get a good start on for later episodes slash content releases?
Now, you're going to have the correct answer, so I'm going to answer first. Probably. So, I'm not spending anything because I don't know enough. I don't want to spend my X cubes or my weapon badges or anything because I'm thinking, well, depending on how quickly NA catches up to Japan, I might need these for future content. So I don't want to use them now when we're over leveled as it is.
Now, see, like you're exactly on the same state of mind as I am. Like that is exactly kind of like what exactly I was going to answer anyways, is that, hey, you know, in this current state of NA, you don't even need anything special because everything you have is already way over what is required to clear the content, for example, right? So it's like, why would you spend so much money or resources on gearing now when PSO2 NA is known that they're going to try to reach parity with the JP servers come later this year in 2020?
Okay, so we're on the same page. Yeah, that's my thinking too, for real.
I think like just save every resource because you never know what you're gonna need or use. Like, and we also know that NA has like different stuff as well. So maybe some of the different stuff may be used in different ways. Like that's even more of a reason to keep stuff, right? Because you really don't know exactly what's gonna happen, and anything can be up in the air.
Now, I've been on an episode of Hoarders before. I don't know if you've seen that show. It's in reference to
no, actually.
Okay, well that ruins the joke, but that is a one of those live TV shows where they explore someone's house who never has cleaned it, and then they're like, we're gonna help you clean this house, and so they start trying to throw away useless junk, and they're like, no, I might need that later, and it's like straight up like a tin can or something, like just that they had no use for. It's like this half-eaten bowl of spaghetti, you need this, like and they'll always like try to find. I was gonna say like in other games like Fallout and story-driven games, I never end up using any of the items, any of the healing items. Resident Evil, I'm very bad about this too. I'm like, oh, what if I need these pistol bullets for a boss later down the line? So I better use my knife on this very difficult boss just in case. And then I end up at the final boss with infinite ammo on everything. And I'm still like, what if there's a boss after this? I surely shouldn't use these yet.
Yeah, like I don't think hoarding is ever a wrong option, to be honest. Because if you hoard, nothing is used. So you can't use it wrongly, right?
True. But the satisfaction of saving up for so long and getting something that is worth it is pretty cool.
Yeah. I've had those moments, although I'm probably not going to share them right now because we're probably going to go on for like another 4 hours if that's the case. Yeah. So we're coming down to the last question of this episode now, which I'll let you take it away because I'm not a wizard in reading names.
All right. This one is Shelzif. Shelzif? It is a very difficult spelling.
I would say Shield.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's me.
Much better. You know who you are. I would challenge a commenter to type out what we just said, like the spelling bee, but... All right, here's the question.
I'll put it on the screen. It's okay.
At both of us. How do you see PSO2 NA 6 months from now?
Ooh. I'm not sure if I'm qualified to answer that one because I have not played NA.
But you've also played a lot of JP and you've seen the future. I have no idea.
Okay, let's see your perspective. How do you see it? Like knowing that NA is saying that they're gonna try to reach parity with JP in 2020.
Well, we also have to remember the reality of COVID-19. It might not happen that smoothly. It might still be staggered. But I also like the wishful thinking side, and maybe NA will get what NA thinks is important first and still be missing some things. Like they'll prioritize what they actually are getting.
Crafting. Yeah, sorry.
Like cough, crafting.
Yeah, totally not nudging you, Nathan. But
So on that, like the prophecy might be foretold here. I think crafting is important because everyone tells me, oh, that rocket ride you're doing, that can just go on forever. Yeah. So that to me sounds very, very fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think though. I don't really have a frame of reference for bosses and whatnot either that could be added.
In my opinion, the most important thing for North America to keep in mind in the next like future to come, right? I wouldn't even say the next 6 months like the question's asking, but I'm gonna say for the future to come. But the most important thing, honestly, is pacing, because you barely have 20% of the game's content right now.
True.
There's so many emergencies, there's so many raids, there's so many types of quests, there's so much missing right now. And to put all of those that are meant to be grinded, let's say, for example, if they're going to catch up to JP actually in like the next 8 months, even if you put every single new content out in like every 2 week, you're still not going to reach JP's content from where you are right now.
Okay, understood. I'm going to answer this from the social perspective rather than the content perspective. I think the NA community is going to grow really strong, really close, and we're going to have this habitual set of regulars that you always see around the same ship and same block. Definitely. And whatnot. And you guys are going to forge relationships, and you're not even going to realize you did urgent quests with your best friend for 3 months in a row before you said hi.
Mm-hmm.
That's my prediction.
So yeah, that's some interesting perspectives which is why I said though, like no matter what, like everything, I still think it really just comes down to pacing, because like for example, if there's too much content, right, then it kind of like gets pretty bad and overwhelming for players who might not have enough time to really just like sit down and play the game. And then a lot of the people who just want to chill and hang out might, need to really work themselves to do all the content more than just hanging out.
Yeah, my biggest concern in the previous part of the podcast was a regular skill growth curve or whatever. Just you're learning things in an odd way and might not pick up some of the intricacies of later fights because the previous ones haven't prepared you adequately enough yet.
Yeah.
And you got to think in the mind of a developer. They take all the previous content into account when creating new content. So it doesn't seem recycled and reused, but also to build upon it.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have those building blocks, it's going to be jarring.
Yeah. It's a very interesting, like, food for thought kind of thing. And I'm really excited to see how it pans out, but also a little bit cautious for the NA players. But, well, that's why we're all here as, like, the people who played in the JP community to really help be the pillars for the NA players to be able to rely on for not just content, but also information, because information out there is so scarce since it's only been in Japan and not exposed to the world.
Yeah, I think it has potential to blow up too, especially in the midst of COVID-19. It's just an overall solid MMO. And word of mouth is going to do a lot for this too, I think. Adding on to that 6 months from now question.
Definitely.
A lot of OGs are coming out of the woodwork. They gave up hope.
Yeah.
And now it's just completely revitalized. And some of these people, like me, have built up followings over the years. And so when the following sees a 0 to 100 in terms of interest in a game, that sets off some alarm bells. And some of them have gratefully checked out the game. And almost every single one of them, very positive reception.
Yeah, which is really, really cool. And like I said, though, I just really appreciate the entire community so much right now. Like, thank you so much, everyone, for literally having interest and literally is like so dedicated and so passionate in playing my favorite game. Like, I know it might sound a little weird because it's not like I'm like in a position where, hey, like I created the game or anything like that. But having spent most of my life playing PSO2 for the past 7 years,
it's a part of you now.
Yeah,
exactly.
It means a lot to me. So really just wanted to extend a thank you for everyone, really. So yeah, I think that really is a nice wrap up to our first episode, which is called 100 Hours. Good thing we're not...
You know what?
Yeah?
Let's make a little note for when I hit my first 1,000 hours.
Oh man.
Ask me again, what are my top 3 video games of all time? when I hit 1,000 hours.
Ooh.
We'll see if that answer changes.
That's gonna be very fun.
For sure. I think at the rate I'm going, I think PSO2 is gonna be up there, but we'll see.
We'll see. Can never know. But yeah, Cam, last words?
Last words.
Not the pistol, but
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Let's see. Just pretty much the same as you. Man, has it been a joy being a part of this growing NA community. It has been so much fun learning from you guys and being the bridge to some people's first PSO2 experience. Because a lot of them are sort of inspired, saying like, if you're gonna jump in blind, well, why can't I? And they do an even better job. They were made for it.
yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see how everything really just shapes out. So really optimistic for the future here, and of course, like, we'll make sure to also be. I'll make sure to be working really closely with the PSO2 NA team as well to make sure that your guys' voice and feedback and everything are heard. Like, I know for sure that Nathan and their team are really, really taking in a lot of the feedback that you guys been giving them. Like, they're willing to really improve based on player experience. So if you guys have any like questions, concerns, or anything regarding PSO2 NA's state or anything like that, like, don't be scared to voice it.
I feel like as a noob, it's kind of not my place to say how something should be because I don't know what it should be if it's wrong. So I feel like some people out there might be like that, but I still think they should voice their concerns just on any quality of life thing that they think the game could be improved on. And maybe that was a thing and you happened to pick the same thing.
Yeah, could have been, definitely.
Like, what's the one? Previewing the fresh find stuff. Like, I think that should be a thing if it's not already.
Yeah.
Right, so how could a feature that makes it better exist?
That's a North American thing. And they can do it, for sure. Like, I know they can do it. So that's one example.
That's a perfect on-the-spot example. Awesome.
Awesome. But yeah, like, once again, thank you so much, everyone, for also participating and joining in our podcast. This is the pilot episode of the Oracle Connection, and really hope you guys are looking forward to the next episode as well. And, well, see two PSO boomers talk to each other.
Okay, Boomer.
Oh my.
Just end the podcast there. That one's from Flyer Go. I totally ripped it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he had the picture of the PSO episode 1 Boomer with the t-shirt. I was on the floor laughing. Speaking of, Flyer Go has been grinding it out too. Shout out to him.
Big shout out. Alright, so yeah, thanks everyone, and we'll definitely see you whenever the next episode's out. Hopefully in 2 weeks.
Take care.
And as always, don't forget to smile.